extension is good, in a vacuum, of itself. But there are other players on this team that are coming up for contract that are equally as important as JT Miller. They just are. Elias Pettersson is equally, if not more important than JT Miller, given his age. And that's the thing. He's the oldest of all these players that are due contracts going forward. He's the oldest. And that doesn't bode well for him.
Well, and I tweeted this out this morning just because, again, there's such hyper focus on JT Miller, and I totally get that. But it's JT Miller and Bo Horvat that need these extensions. They're the big money guys, but Nils Höglander comes out of his entry-level deal. Like, what if Kuzmenko does hit? He's on an entry-level deal for a year. But if he scores 20, he's got the same agent as Mikheyev. Mikheyev's only been in the league 3 years. Like, if Kuzmenko gets to 20 goals, he's going to want something close to the Mikheyev deal.
Sure.
Like, yeah. Kuzmenko may only be here for a year just because they won't be able to afford him. But Höglander comes out of his entry-level deal. He doesn't have much leverage, but guys don't get cheaper, right? Like, if Höglander has any sort of season, they're going to have to pay him. Travis Dermott, his contract is up. And then the following year, it's Elias Pettersson, no longer looking bridge. Like, he's going to be looking to knock it out of the park. But, Vasily Podkolzin coming out of his entry-level deal. And if he continues to develop the way that he did in the second half, like, that's going to be an expensive contract. So it's not just about JT Miller. And that's where I keep saying, like, I don't know how you can afford JT Miller. Like, they could talk about an extension, but like, at some point, you can't just keep accumulating because all these guys get more and more expensive. And, I saw some pushback to my tweet about, like, yeah, but, Tyler Myers comes off the book in 2 years. So does Pearson. So does Dickinson. That's true. Like, I can't dispute that fact. But somebody has to play right defense. Like, you're not just walking away from Tyler Myers in 2 years. You're going to pay a right side defenseman. Like, look what John Klingberg is looking for. He's still on the market because he hasn't got what he's looking for. But this idea that, Tyler Myers comes off the book. Well, okay, maybe you replace him with a $4 million guy. But, that's a cap savings of $2 million. It's not the full $6 million for Tyler Myers because you have to, you got to replace these players, but also you got to get this team better. Like, just re-signing your own players, like, yeah, you hope for improvement from within, but the assembled cast they had last year didn't make the playoffs. So it's I feel like we sort of spinning our wheels a little bit, but just this idea that, sure, there's a path to an extension for JT Miller, but how? Like, ultimately, in the big picture of trying to improve this team and make everybody happy, there's just no way to do it. There's not enough money to go around. Even if the cap goes up a little bit, there has to be, at some point, they've got to find a way to shed some salary. It's as simple as that. And I'm sure Jim Rutherford and Patrick Haldane recognize it. But as we sit here in late July, that's the one thing that they have not been able to accomplish yet.
Yeah, it's. I think people start to get self-protective of their own feelings and be like, okay, there's another avenue, so they want to cling to the extension like it's a life raft here. And the truth of the matter is, there is no easy, obvious answer. And it would be one thing for us to stand on our soapbox and just say, hey, it's so easy, just do that. But and trade is the most obvious first half of the answer. But the second half of the answer is finding a trade partner. You just cannot unilaterally pull off a trade, of course. So it's a complicated one. I'll give it that for the Vancouver Canucks, but this is the cost of doing business these days.
But the other thing too that people don't seem to want, and maybe they recognize it, but they just don't want to accept it, is that waiting 2 years for Tyler Myers and Tanner Pearson to come off the books cannot be a plan. Like, it just, you can't burn 2 years of Thatcher Demko and 2 good years of Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. Like, that cannot be the plan.
No.
So, like, yeah, they do at some point, those contracts expire, but sitting and twiddling your thumbs for 2 years, no bloody way. That cannot be a plan for this new management group of the Vancouver Canucks.